My name is Linnell Kitlitz. I was an E5 hospital corpsman in the United States Coast Guard. I enlisted in 1977 through 1980. After boot camp in Cape May, New Jersey, I was at Governor's Island in New York City and then New London, Connecticut for corpsman school, then Charleston, South Carolina in the group office, which was my final duty station. 1977 was still the early time of women in the service. It was great at the academy because the first class of women was in the Coast Guard Academy at that time. So being a corpsman in the hospital, I got to see them.
They had a lot that they felt that they had to prove. I think they did a great job at that. I was stationed at the group office in Charleston, South Carolina, and one of the search and rescue calls I went out on was a large tanker anchored outside of Charleston Harbor in international waters, had a crew member that had fallen, and I went out on one of the 41-foot boat, and we climbed a rope ladder that was thrown over the edge of the boat. The crew member had fallen on his face, and they brought out a helicopter from Air Station Savannah. So my job was to stabilize him on a backboard and hook up an IV to him, load him in a Stokes litter, and then he was lifted out and transported to a hospital. Don't do that every day. I think your parasympathetic system takes over. I have never climbed up the rope ladder of the side of a cargo ship. That was a little scary, would be a good word, but you keep climbing up and you just do it. And I think when you're done, you just kind of go, oh my, and you kind of like decompress. Hurricane David came along Labor Day weekend of 1979. And Charleston Harbor, Charleston, the city itself, is actually below sea level. And they were bringing a storm surge that was probably about 6 to 8 feet and a lot of wind and rain. So any boat that was in Charleston or the Navy Yard or the marinas, they would go up the intercoastal waterway to try to ride out the storm surge. We had two 41-foot boats at the Coast Guard station there, and we went underway into the storm. One of the things that jumped out of my mind as we were riding in the waves is that a boat over by the Navy base had sprung a leak and actually had a father and son on board, and we had to tie up to the boat and tow it side by side over to the Navy base and tie it up there. But what I learned is as you are cresting and falling in very large waves, the cabins of the boats, as the water drops down, the cabins actually come together. And we had fenders in between the boats, but it was a good way for people to get knocked unconscious. So I learned that you walk in the shortest possible way around a boat. And then we just rode out to sea, waiting for any other search and rescue calls. We were out for about 36 hours. The next day, the sky was blue. The sea was perfectly calm and littered with everything from life jackets to fenders to boats to just everything you could possibly think of. So it was quite an experience. I was stationed at Governor's Island in 1977. We had several large 371-foot Coast Guard ships stationed there. There were a lot of people there, but there were not a lot of female officers and there were a lot of enlisted people. It was still a transition of a lot of guys, not a lot of women, and you really had to be able to, I think, hold your own when you were around this many guys. They wanted to date you. There were a lot of great guys. Please, there were a lot of wonderful people. It was just a time of change. We were a lot of young people. So I think that was also part of the challenges of being there.
The biggest accomplishment was realizing actually how much we did in the service, because when I got out, I went back to undergraduate school and finished my master's degree. And when you come back to college at 21 or 22, you feel very different. And that's much more addressed today because people are still partying in school and they're doing stuff and you're like, gee, I was out on a search and rescue like last summer. I rode out a hurricane in Charleston last summer. It's very different. You're different when you come back. When I got out, of course, I was in college and I went to the VA in Newington, Connecticut for medical for probably about a year and a half because I was a student and had no medical insurance. It was, I would say, challenging then, and I never went back, and I've gone back now to go back and get my benefits, but I didn't go back for 30 years. It's like, because they didn't even deal with women. They would ship us off to a private physician or they would ship us off to somebody else because they weren't there yet at that point to deal with women. I think that the VA, and I can speak only from the state facility in Connecticut, has really made an effort to expand their resources to meet with women. As a matter of fact, I have a doctor's appointment in 2 weeks, and they are bringing back 3 women physicians from a program in here to help to help work with women. So I think they're going in the right direction. I think the facilities have been upgraded, and I think they're more willing to recognize that there are female veterans around, and I think that's terrific.